Fighters of the Khortytsa division of the Ukrainian Armed Forces and the Cherny Les Artillery Intelligence Brigade have discovered and targeted the Buk M3 anti-aircraft missile system belonging to the occupying Russian army in the Donetsk region. The complex kamikaze, which was preparing to fire at the position of the Ukrainian army, was destroyed together with its crew members and combat equipment by the drone strike. Buk M3 is one of the key means of air defense against the enemy, which it uses to defeat targets in the air, on the ground and on the water. Buk M3 is the most modern modification. The interception radius is up to 70 kilometers. The approximate cost of such a ZRK complex is $45 million.
The Syrian authorities are forcing the Russians out of the Tartus military base in the Mediterranean, so Russian ships will probably have to return to the base bypassing Europe, which is very expensive and time-consuming. This was reported on air by the representative of the Ukrainian Navy, Dmitry Pletenchuk. In particular, he was asked to comment on the information that there were 3 Russian ships in the Mediterranean Sea this morning, including a carrier of 8-caliber cruise missiles. There are interesting events unfolding there, even to some extent tragic for the Russians from the point of view of geopolitics. They are gradually moving towards the exit. Of course, it has become a problem for them that they are asked, apparently, from the now former base in Tartus, which they built there for half a century. We are seeing actions that indicate that they are nevertheless forced to leave it, Pletenchuk said. He added that the Russians have places in the region to bunker, to call at the ports of Algeria and Egypt, but these are not military bases. The military man also added that due to the situation in Tartus, Russian ships have logistical problems. According to him, logistics are now quite complicated for the Russians in the Mediterranean Sea, given the closed Bosphorus. They continue to demonstrate their presence there. They show the flag and, of course, they will return here again. But it is practically impossible for the Russians to use the fleet for this as before. They will now have to bypass Europe, come here across the Atlantic, and here they will have to carry out the tasks that their leadership sets for them, because unfortunately they are also trying to advance their interests in Africa. We all understand what these interests are, but this is already becoming quite expensive and time-consuming, Pletenchuk explained. After the fall of Syrian dictator Bashar al-Assad, Russia began withdrawing its scattered garrisons from northern and eastern Syria and from positions in the Alawite Mountains in the west of the country. At the end of 2024, it was known that the Russians still remained at 2 main bases, Khmeimim and Tartus. In January 2025, Ukrainian Navy spokesman Dmitry Pletenchuk said that Russian ships could not enter Tartus because they had not received permission from local authorities. At that time, the Sparta ship, which is used to transport military equipment, was not allowed into the port. It was subsequently reported that the new Syrian administration had terminated the contract with the Russian company for the management and operation of the Tartus port, with Tartus Customs Chief Riyad Judi stating that the investment contract had been cancelled after the Russian company Stroy Transgaz failed to fulfill the terms of the 2019 agreement, in particular investments in infrastructure. The United States, led by Donald Trump, managed to bring Ukraine and the aggressor Russia to the negotiating table. As expected, the peace process did not lead to serious progress towards peace, since Moscow clearly showed that it does not intend to conduct real negotiations with Ukraine and seeks to achieve maximum goals in its war. Kiev has repeatedly warned Washington about this, but the Trump administration continues to live in illusions. The United States, which initiated diplomacy, was unable to provide the conditions for its implementation, and the real ability of the White House to bang its fist on the table raises big questions. In an interview with Glavred, Russian political strategist and gallery owner Marat Gelman explained why Trump and Putin are one team today, revealed the Kremlin's future plans against Ukraine, shared his opinion regarding the occupiers' threats to seize the Kharkiv and Sumy regions, and made a forecast about when Putin will be ready for real negotiations with Kiev. At the moment, I see that Putin is planning to continue military offensives. Apparently, he is betting heavily on the summer campaign, and until Putin is convinced that he cannot advance militarily, there will be no real peace talks and results. So now, it seems to me, let these talks be ongoing, but in general, there is no need to pay attention to them. Instead, Europe and America should supply weapons to Ukraine. This is more or less a realistic thing to do, he said. Putin is interested in the military actions being accompanied by hope for their speedy end. With this hope, he will cut off additional sanctions and arms supplies to Ukraine. For Putin, the ideal scenario is for the war to continue in parallel with negotiations, for example, in Istanbul or the Vatican. Prisoner exchanges are possible. They say that Putin and Trump have also agreed on exchanging some prisoners. Ukraine probably cannot stop such a negotiation process, but its main task is to show that these are not real negotiations, but a decorative panel. We need to hold the line until September and thwart the summer offensive. I hope that European countries and America will help Ukraine with this. And in the fall, when Putin's hope of seizing 4 regions by military means runs out, we can talk about peace in earnest, the expert added. He said that Putin hopes for the exhaustion of the Ukrainian army, but Ukraine has already become part of Europe, the countries of which stand next to it. Germany, France, England and Poland stand next to Ukraine. It seems to me that this is a guarantee that Putin will not be allowed to realize his dreams, tasks and the like. When the summer ends, it will be possible to calculate how many meters the Russian army has advanced and what such advancement cost Putin. Based on such calculations, it should become clear that it is impossible to seize the 4 regions by military means, and then the Russian delegation will make so-called compromises. For example, concessions on the demarcation line, and moderate its ambitions regarding the 4 regions, he told.